Mr. UPS man brought us a bunch of parts for this MX5 Global Cup car. All we got to do now is fix it. We've got it up on the frame machine, so let's get this thing clamped down. Alright, so we're going to take a few shields off the bottom of the frame rail that actually shroud the holes that we need to measure to. We're going to take this tram gauge, climb underneath the car, and get some measurements. So these are the shields we need to take off that I was referring to that shroud the hole that we need to measure to. They're on the bottom of the frame rail here, and it's just two 10s. There's a 10mm there and a 10mm right there. We take those two out, and that shield will come right off. Alright, so we've got the car measured out. We measured out the rear of the car from the bottom side, and we measured out the front of the car from the bottom side, and we know where it's bent, so we can start pulling. The first thing we need to do is go ahead and get this cradle dropped out of the way so we can start pulling on it. Alright, so we've had the cradle in and out of this thing a few times, just making sure everything fits like it's supposed to. Now we're going to drop the cradle one more time, take some more measurements just to make sure that we are where we're supposed to be, and then we can start cutting off the parts that we're going to be replacing. We've got the preliminary fitment of the new parts on this MX5. Core support, new reinforcement, new frame rail, strut tower, upper rail, and a new cross member there. You see we drilled out all the spot welds that held it on from the factory, and everything's set in there with basically some clamps. Everything measured out, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set the cradle in there to make sure everything's fitting well. One thing I'm going to do before I set the cradle in there is I'm going to strip it down to a naked cradle, which basically means I'm going to pull the suspension off, the sway bar, the steering rack. I'm going to try to pull it off as one assembly. We're going to see how that goes. I think it'll be okay. The reason why I want to pull it down to a naked cradle is because the naked cradle will be a lot easier to set up in there, because we'll probably be fitting it more than once. And it's a lot lighter with all this stuff not on there. And you don't have to fight the shocks going up into the strut towers and everything. We more or less just want to make sure all these bolt holes are where they're supposed to be. I want to pull the steering rack, which is this jewel here, the sway bar off, the upper lower control arm, the shock, all as one unit. So I'm going to leave the tie rod ends attached to each knuckle. I'm going to bolt it off and we're going to see if I can get this all apart. So there you go. It's out. It was kind of tough with one person. Smashed my finger a little bit, but she's out. We've got a naked cradle. I'm going to leave the motor mounts on there because I don't think they weigh that much and I don't think they're going to be in the way. But we're ready to set that up in there and test fit it now. Cradle's definitely a lot lighter without all that suspension on there. So we're going to bolt it up into the car, start bolting on some sheet metal, make sure everything's where it's supposed to be, and then we'll be ready to weld. Alright, so we got the cradle all bolted up. All the holes lined up and everything bolted up really easy. So we're going to take a few more measurements just to make sure. And then we'll start hanging some parts and then we're ready to weld. This car is getting a new left door and a new left quarter panel also. So we decided before we weld this front end together, we should probably hang these parts just to verify that the gaps are good and everything fits perfect. So we're going to get the new door cut out and hung on the car. We're also going to get the quarter panel hung on the car, and then we can weld the front end together. So this is the old door and it's cut out for the roll cage. This is the new door. It's not cut out, so we're going to have to cut that out. Taping it off where we need to cut it. We got to make the inside of that door look like the inside of that door. Basically for roll cage clearances. Alright, so we've got the left side and the whole front end all test fit and everything fits really well. So I'm pretty comfortable with welding the front end together. So let's get this front end taken apart and start welding.
Everybody's quit shaking hands because of this coronavirus thing. But me personally, I quit shaking hands because of the shortage of toilet paper.
Alright, so that's going to be about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, hit that like button. And if this is the first time you're ever seeing me, consider subscribing and ringing that bell notification icon. That way you won't miss any future content. And if you have any thoughts or questions, leave them in the comments section down below. You guys need to stay safe out there. Remember to wash your hands. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. See ya!